Hi YouTube, it's Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. So this is going to be the last of the new shop update videos. It's Saturday morning. Yesterday, well, it was kind of late in the day when I finally got done for the day, about 10:30 at night, something like that. But yesterday I finished putting up the ceiling. There are a couple of spots where I need to go back and replace a piece that I completely butchered the cutout for the light, and there's some trim along this side right here that that needs to be put up, but that's going to happen when I finish out the walls and then when I build the grinding room and everything. So so this is pretty much the last of the new shop updates. The shop is now I can work in here now, and that was kind of the big push for the last month or so. Was to be able to have a shop where I could go out and work. One thing I started noticing last night, or maybe it was yesterday, I finished up the ceiling yesterday morning, was that, finishing up that ceiling and then seeing the thermometer and seeing it come up. I think yesterday was about 30 degrees, something like that during the daytime, was our high. And as soon as I finished up that ceiling, it actually started Thursday when I got about halfway up, or halfway that way in the shop. I put the ceiling panels up, and then I'd toss up the insulating bats, just in a pile up there, and then put my ladder in a nice spot and climb up there, and crawl around and spread the insulation out. But once I got a little bit past halfway, that third section right there was the first time I started noticing that when I got up in there to put the insulation in, it was actually cold up in the ceiling, and it was getting an awful lot warmer down here in the shop. And that really, it got really noticeable, when I finished out that third section and then started on the fourth section. So much so that I actually broke a sweat here in the shop for the very first time. Now granted, my thermometer said we were at like 44, 45 degrees when that happened, but still, having a shop that's warm enough that you can work without being, in a coat and gloves and everything, was really nice. So anyway, yeah, you can see the shop ceiling is now all the way done. And this morning I came out here, and I think it's 22 degrees outside this morning when I looked. And you can see the thermometer is at 37 right now. And I just lit basically a really quick fire just to kind of take the chill off a little bit. But when I came out here, it was still at 34, which I think it dropped down to about 14 last night. Let's see, where are we at here? We gotta miss the labs here. They're going crazy this morning. So that was kind of nice that we didn't freeze last night, or at least freeze inside the shop. But anyway, so what I was kind of noticing yesterday, when I got the ceiling done, the temperature started coming up since I wasn't losing all my heat out the ceiling. And I kind of got to thinking, that hey, there might be hope with getting the shop done and everything. I really started noticing that I was feeling an awful lot calmer, about the whole move and about, the shop and everything. And I told my wife about it, and she says, yeah, you go nuts when there's something wrong in your shop. And it was kind of an odd realization, just kind of the thought of how much my identity, kind of goes around having the shop. There was also another problem here in the shop that I didn't tell you about. And that was, well, it was the shop and the house. We had an awful lot of flickering lights going on in the house. And then every time we'd start the clothes dryer, the lights would dim. Dim like really hard. And it was getting worse, to where you start the dryer and you thought the kitchen lights were going to go completely out. You start the vacuum cleaner up over there and the lights would brighten, and then they'd come back down, to normal. Come over here into the shop, And if I ran anything over maybe 7 amps, so like a saw, like a chop saw with a sharp blade and going through it easy, okay, everything was fine. The second I started burying into a cut, or if I was using a dull blade or something, I'd trip 3 of the breakers inside the house. Firing up an air compressor, if that air compressor had no air pressure in it whatsoever, it would start the air compressor, and the air compressor would come all the way up to 150 psi on that one, and then shut off. And I had to unplug it or turn it off, because if I used air down to say 120, and then the air compressor tried to kick back on to build back up to the 150, so starting the motor under a load, it'd trip breakers over there in the house, and the air compressor would make an ungodly noise. I mean, just awful. The belt grinders, you could start them up, sorta. I mean, if there was no load, 2 of them would run. But the second you put a load on them, you'd be tripping breakers over there, and I mean, just not very good. So anyway, I had my electrician come over, and he took a look at it and said, yeah, that's a power company deal. It's a loose neutral in the service, which is what he diagnosed it as. Because he went through the entire house and the entire shop, and everything looked out okay. So we called up the power company. The power company came out, and they put a little tester on there. Of course, my electrician wasn't there. He had to go to another job. And they said, hey, the service is just fine. And of course, I told him, I said, well, the electrician said it's you guys, that's what they found. And they went back and forth for, a week, maybe 2 weeks, something like that. One of them would come out and say, yeah, it's the other one's problem, and just back and forth. Well, finally, I told my electrician, I said, hey, listen, I want to get started back to work on Monday, and I need power. So, I mean, good power. So he came out. He went through and double-checked everything. We called up the power company again. They came out, and we just hung out here in the shop until they showed up. And so my electrician said, hey, listen, this is everything I've tested, and this is what we're finding, and it's got to be on your end. And the power company said, hey, listen, this is the meter. I'm putting this meter right on here, right in front of you. You got perfect power right here, right? And my electrician says, well, what about right here where I'm testing it? I kid you not, 1.5 inches difference. There was main lugs here, so you got your power coming in, your meter, so your power comes in, and you've got 2 lugs up here, and then you've got your meter plug in, and you got 2 lugs here, and then you got a split in the breaker box, and then 2 lugs right here, right? So he plugs it in his meter here and says, there's no problem. And my electrician says, well, I've been testing from right here, and there is a problem. So he puts that meter to right here, and sure enough, there's a big old problem. The screw right in the middle that looked to me like it was, it didn't look to me like an electrical connection. It looked to me more like that was how the box was built. Now, you guys got to understand, I am not an electrician. I mean, I can wire a circuit, I can pull wire, I get by. But when it comes to like troubleshooting and stuff, hey, I'd much rather get somebody in there that does that for a living. He tightened up that screw, problem completely solved. I mean, just amazing. So anyway, so we got power in here now. So, but what I was finding was that the fact that I had the power fixed, so that I'd come in and just light up a grinder anytime I wanted to, or, I didn't even try welding anything with the power being messed up like that. But now that I can grind stuff, I can weld stuff, and I can come back out here in the shop and stay warm and work and everything, boy, that's, it almost seems like it's life back to normal already. I mean, I haven't made a knife yet at all, but that's what it's like. Yeah, just the way I'm feeling. So anyways, so I thought that was kind of interesting. So for the shop now, there's not a whole lot. There's still projects left to do. After I make a couple of batches of knives, I'll go ahead and decide on whether I'm doing the grinding room with the fans idea. And then when I do that, then I'll go ahead and finish up that edge of the trim up in the ceiling. I might as well take you over here. Oh, yeah. Hey, my boy and I last night, kind of as a celebratory type of deal, we were shooting some of my vintage air rifles. We've got a Sheridan Silver Streak and 20 caliber there, and then a Benjamin, I think it's a 347. Kind of a cool little rifle with a Tootsie Roll front end on it, and 177. Vance seems to like that one quite a bit. These old Sheridans, for me, that's about as good as it gets for a multi-pump rifle. I like them quite a bit better than the Benjamins, either in 177 or 22. But anyways, so over here, the last bit of the walls and insulation that we have left to do is going to be these 4 sections. And I call them sections because they're in between the poles. You know, it's a pole barn, so, and each section is roughly 8 foot, you know, from pole to pole. So probably what I'll do is go ahead and get a batch or 2 of knives done, and then go ahead and take a couple of days or a weekend or something like that when everything else slows down, and go ahead and frame these in, insulate them, and OSB them. This one and that one. And then the last set, back there in the corner, there we go. This last set here in the corner, this is going to be the walk-in meat cooler. So I've still got to decide, I've actually got to draw it out on paper and decide how I want to build the meat cooler. You know, how I want to frame in the walls, how I want to do the ceiling, you know, so that I have plenty of support for hanging animals and stuff. And then I was also kind of thinking that I may end up turning this into a, I guess you wouldn't call it a greenhouse because there's no sun ever going to get in there. But like a place to start seeds and stuff, you know, for you know, late winter, early spring. You know, it's going to be an insulated box pretty much. And yeah, it'll have the AC units in there for keeping it cold in there. But as well insulated as the last one was, I can't imagine that if you were to put some grow lights in there and then probably something just like a 100-watt regular old school incandescent light bulb, it would probably keep the inside of that thing at, you know, 50, 60, 70 degrees, something like that. So you could use it for starting seeds, you know, in the late winter, and get some more use out of it during the season. But anyway, so once I get that built, then I'll go ahead and get this this trim up here. That right there is the one. I'm not even going to zoom in on it. When I went to cut the ceiling panel for the light fixture, I was thinking, man, it's the last one that I got to cut, and man, that I kept getting better and better at it, and so I didn't measure twice instead of measure. So I only measured once, and yeah, I got like a 2-inch gap along the side of it. So I'll have to replace that panel sooner or later. But anyway, so yeah, so the shop is warm now. I've got good power. So now it's you know, on to unpacking and cleanup, and then setting up the machines. You know, like the power hammer is, you know, I mean, it's here. I could go ahead and plug it in, but right now it's lifted up on rollers. It's not even sitting on the floor, much less bolted to the floor. The lathe, you know, I've still got to wire the switch back on because I had to take that part off to be able to move it. And it needs to get bolted back down to the bench, and then the bench needs to be leveled out and everything, and then put all the, you know, the bits and, you know, the chucks and all that kind of stuff where they need to be. Milling machines the same way. I mean, it's sitting there. You know, the milling machine is sitting here, and I'm pretty sure that's where it's going to go, but it still needs bolted down. We got to get the toolbox back up behind it, get the, you know, all the, you know, all the tooling, you know, set out for it. So there's still a ton of work left to do. But is, you know, I'm going to call the shop the shop moving project pretty much done, because shops are never done. They're always evolving. Yeah, so this weekend we'll be, moving, getting stuff out of boxes in here. I've still got to go back to the other house and do the touch-ups, put blinds up. I think the flooring guy is supposed to be done today. Try to get that on the market beginning of this week, and then the beginning of this coming week, go ahead and fire up and start a batch of knives. I think what I'm most, I am so far behind right now on knives, it's not even funny. In fact, folks have been, sending me emails asking me for a time frame, and I say, I just don't know. A year, 2 years, something like that. And I hate, to not be able to tell somebody, hey, 6 months or 3 months or something, but honestly, I just don't know right now. So even though the pocket knives are what I'm farthest behind in, I think my first batch or two is going to be fixed blades, because I can go ahead, I'm much more efficient with the fixed blades because, I've made a whole bunch of them, a couple thousand fixed blades. The folders, I've only done a couple of hundred of, so I'm way faster on the fixed blades, and I can go ahead and knock out some, get used to everything, and then when I'm making a fixed blade, chef's knife or a neck knife, something like that, I think I can concentrate more on the shop and how things are working, and I don't have to concentrate quite so much on the build itself, and that'll get me a chance to go ahead and get everything moved to where it needs to be, make sure I got light where it needs to be, all that kind of stuff. And then in a week or two, a couple weeks, probably go ahead and start in on some of those folders that I'm really far behind on. So anyway, so that is the final shop update, where I'm at for, moving the shop, getting everything set up, getting it insulated and put together, and yeah. So it's I think this is what, third or fourth video on that idea. And I guess it's been fun. It'll be interesting. I might actually go back and watch this one, or watch this series right here, and just, kind of see how it went from start to finish. Because while you're working on something, you don't get the, oh wow, holy cow, that was a whole week's worth of work done there, While you're working on it, it's just work, 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 and you don't get to see the big changes. So later today, I'm going to go ahead and take you all over to the old shop. I'm going to go ahead and sweep it out. We'll do some reminiscing there in that old shop, and then I've got another one on sharpening stones that I'll probably shoot here pretty soon, and then it'll just be back to making knives. Finally, it's going to be exciting. I haven't made a knife now, and I think the last one I finished was 3 months ago, because I quit about a month before we closed on the new house, to go ahead and start getting packed and get some other projects finished up. And then we closed on the house December 6th, and today is February 8th, and I kind of figured it would take a couple of months to get everything moved over, and so it's been 2 months that I haven't worked on a knife since. So about 3 months or so since I finished a knife out. So I'm itching to get back out here and make some pretty ones. So, I think we're going to call it good for this one. Again, this is Joe Calton with Calton Cutlery. You can find me on the web, caltoncutlery.com. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you enjoyed watching the shop, get put together and the walls built and everything. And we will see you next time.